Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, I walked to the city library with a book in my hand and a reason in my heart. The truth was simple. I didn't go for reading. I didn't go for studying. I didn't go for peace or silence or knowledge. I went for her. Her name was Tara. She worked behind the counter, always with the same loose bun, always with the same glasses slipping down her nose, always with that soft smile that felt like sunlight filtered through clouds. The first time I saw her, she was helping an elderly woman find a book. She spoke gently, leaned forward with interest, and nodded patiently as the woman explained what she wanted. Something about her presence made the entire library feel warmer. And from that day, my Saturdays changed. I would stand in line at the counter, pretending to look casual, pretending I needed a book. But my eyes searched only for her. Every time she stamped my book, she looked at me slightly longer than she needed to. Maybe it was only in my head. Maybe she looked at everyone that way. But the moment her eyes met mine, the world went quiet for a second. I would walk out of the library hugging the book to my chest. Not because it was special, but because her fingers had touched it before mine. I started choosing books by how long their checkout process might take. I wanted excuses to talk to her. I wanted reasons to stand close, to hear her voice, to watch her smile. But I kept everything inside. I liked the quietness of my feelings. It didn't demand anything. It didn't ask for anything in return. All it wanted was to feel something. And she made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. She made the world softer. And I didn't know then that softness doesn't always stay. For weeks our conversations were short, barely enough to fill a minute. But to me, they were treasures I carried around the whole day. "How are you?" she would ask while stamping the return date on my borrowed book. "Good," I would reply, trying to sound normal, even though my heart was beating too loudly. She always had that delicate, calming voice. Her words never rushed, never stumbled. It was as if she had learned the art of speaking gently, so people would always feel safe around her. One Saturday, she noticed I kept borrowing the same kinds of books. Calm novels, quiet stories. She smiled and said, "You like peaceful things, don't you?" I swallowed a breath. No one had ever said something like that to me. No one had ever looked into my habits deeply enough to understand me. "I guess I do," I replied. She nodded thoughtfully. "Peace is rare these days." That one sentence stayed with me for days. It felt like she had seen something inside me that even I didn't understand. Our conversations grew longer, but never too long. She would ask about my week, recommend a book, smile at my awkward jokes, and I found myself waiting for Saturdays like a child waits for their birthday. Counting days, counting hours. One morning, I gathered the courage to ask her, "What kind of books do you like?" She looked up, eyes soft. "Romance," she said. "Stories where people find each other in unexpected ways." My heart felt warm for a moment. I imagined us in a small story of our own. A quiet Saturday romance between a librarian and someone who kept returning for her smile. I didn't say anything, but something in me whispered, "I wish I was in one of those stories with you." And for a moment, it felt possible. For a moment, I let myself imagine. I didn't know that imagination was all it would ever be. The library was quiet that day, quieter than usual. I walked to the counter carrying a book I hadn't even opened. All I cared about was seeing her again. And she was there, Tyra adjusting her glasses, hair falling from her bun, smiling the second she saw me. I felt my chest soften. Maybe today I would talk a little more. Maybe today she would too. Maybe today something would happen. But then I saw him. A tall man walked toward the counter from the back section of the library. Tara looked up, and her face changed instantly, bright, glowing, alive in a way I had never seen before. "My husband," she said, her voice rising with excitement. I froze. Husband. The word felt sharp, like cold water thrown at my chest. He leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. She laughed, touched his arm, and said, "You came early." They spoke to each other with the ease of people who shared mornings, dreams, routines, and a life. I stood there, invisible. She introduced him to me, but I barely heard anything. The sounds around me faded into a dull ringing. I forced a smile, nodded politely, and stepped away. They walked out together, holding hands. Her voice was happy. His touch was familiar. The library doors closed behind them. And suddenly, the entire building felt colder. I stood there for a long moment, feeling stupid for all my small hopes, feeling foolish for the long stares, the imagined meanings, the quiet dreams. She was never mine. She was never meant to be. And I learned something painful that day. Sometimes we don't fall in love with a person. We fall in love with the way they make our world feel lighter, even if that world shatters in 1 second. I didn't go to the library the following Saturday, or the Saturday after that, or the one after that. I told myself I was busy. I told myself I had other things to do. But the truth was simple. I didn't know how to face her without feeling the breaking inside me again. The memory of her saying, "my husband," kept echoing in my mind. The way her eyes lit up. The way her voice softened. The way she leaned into him with comfort and certainty. It was a kind of love I couldn't compete with. A kind of completeness I had no place in. Weeks passed. The world outside kept moving. Cars honking, people rushing, seasons shifting. But inside me, everything felt stuck in that moment. One day, I finally went back. Not because I was ready, but because I missed the smell of old books. The quiet corners, the soft rustling of pages. And maybe I missed her. When I entered, she looked up immediately. Her face brightened. "You're back. I thought you moved or something." I forced a smile, just busy. She didn't know. She never would. She talked about her week. Her husband, a new section of books. I nodded, listened, smiled in all the right places. But inside, I kept a careful distance. Behind my polite replies, I held the truth quietly. That some feelings must stay unspoken. That some emotions must remain folded inside the heart. I checked out a book I didn't care about and walked out. The world felt normal again, but my heart didn't. That day I learned how to carry silence. Something changed inside me after that day. I realized that my visits to the library needed to become normal again. Not emotional. I had to separate the place from the feeling, the books from the girl, the reality from the dream. So I began healing in small ways. I went to the library at different times of the day. Afternoons, evenings, even just before closing. Sometimes Tara wasn't there. Sometimes she was busy with other people. Sometimes I barely saw her at all. It helped. I started choosing books I genuinely liked instead of ones I picked just to see her reaction. I sat in the reading area longer, letting myself get lost in fictional worlds instead of my own thoughts. Slowly the ache softened. One evening, as I was returning a book, she looked at me with concern and said, "You look happier these days." I almost laughed. If only she knew why. But I just said, "I'm doing okay." She smiled warmly. "Good. You seemed stressed before. I'm glad you're feeling better." Her kindness still touched me, but it didn't break me anymore. Healing doesn't erase someone. It just makes the weight of them lighter to carry. I still noticed her smile. I still admired her calmness. But now it didn't feel like longing. It felt like appreciation. And that was enough. Months passed, seasons changed. People came and went from the library. Life shifted around me in small, steady ways. But the memory of Tara didn't fade. It simply softened. I still went to the library every Saturday. Out of habit, out of comfort, out of love for quiet places that held quiet stories. She was still there behind the counter, still smiling gently, still adjusting her glasses every few minutes. But she was no longer the reason I walked through those doors. She had become something else. A lesson, a reminder, a warm chapter in my life that didn't need a continuation. One afternoon, I watched her and her husband read together at a corner table. Their heads leaned close, sharing a page, sharing a life. And instead of sadness, I felt peace. Some people enter our world not to stay, but to show us that softness exists. That kindness can be beautiful. That connection doesn't always need ownership. Tara never knew what she meant to me. She never knew the quiet ache, the quiet admiration, the quiet healing. But she didn't need to know. Some feelings are meant to stay unspoken. Some emotions are meant to be held silently, like folded paper inside a drawer. Now, when I read romance novels, stories where people find each other, I smile softly, because I once found someone too. Not to love, not to keep, but to learn from. And that in its own way was enough.